It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains are squeezed, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time, you are in a little bit of hurt. So how do you get full visibility and adapt in real time? Over 42,000 businesses trust NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP for a reason. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. Real-time forecasting helps you move into the future with confidence, and with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. Congrats, your business is doing great. All your hard work is paying off, but you need help like now, and you have to hire fast. How can you hire amazing candidates quickly? Easy, just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. And with sponsored jobs, your posts jump to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. One of the things I love most about Indeed is that it has one of the largest databases of job seekers, giving employers access to a wide range of candidates. And with job alerts, I get notified when new candidates apply. And with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. So how fast? Well, in the minute that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/smartpassive. Just go to Indeed.com/smartpassive right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/smartpassive. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. You spent months building towards launch day, but when the clock hits 0, your site crashes. Bots swarm, and loyal fans rage on Reddit. That's not good. Fanfare was built to stop that. Fanfare is the drop platform made for high-pressure moments, stampede-proof infrastructure, verified waitlists, and bot filters that actually work. Instead of refunds and rage, you get retention and revenue. And that sounds great to me. Your next launch shouldn't be a gamble. Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook and learn how to bulletproof your drop at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, that's fanfare.io/playbook.
This is the Smart Passive Income Podcast with Pat Flynn, session number 148. Yum.
Welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, where it's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host, who's sad he gave away his pogs in college, Pat Flynn.
Still using a copy-paste website? Break the template trap with Framer. Whether you're overwhelmed by traditional site builders or frustrated with cookie-cutter designs, Framer gives you the freedom to create a site that's professional, polished, and uniquely yours. Framer is the design-first, no-code website builder that lets anyone ship a production-ready site in minutes. It's free to start, allowing you to browse hundreds of pixel-perfect templates or even design something on your own on a totally blank canvas. Add bold animations like appear effects, text effects, parallax scrolling, scroll animations, looping animations, and much more in seconds. The built-in AI handles the heavy lifting, generating starter layouts, and can even translate your entire site to any language. Ready to build a site that looks hand-coded without hiring a developer? Launch your site for free at framer.com and use code SPI to get your first month of pro on the house. That's framer.com, promo code SPI. Framer.com, promo code SPI. Rules and restrictions may apply. With running your own business, legal questions always come with the territory. Like, can I use this contract or agreement? What do I do if a client doesn't pay? Am I even structured the right way for taxes? Instead of Googling your way through legal landmines, imagine having a law firm ready to address your business's legal needs without the sticker shock. That's what you get with Legal Shield's small business plans. Legal Shield helps entrepreneurs access real legal help on contract reviews, collection letters, business formation guidance, and even help navigating IRS audits. Members can schedule consultations, upload documents through the app, and get support from a provider law firm that knows small business laws in your state. Plus, consultations on taxes or trademarks help you stay ahead of potential problems. And if a client is late on a payment, Legal Shield steps in with professional collection letters so you can protect your hard-earned revenue, all for a fraction of the price of hiring a lawyer on your own. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me today. This is session number 148 of the Smart Passive Income Podcast, and I'm super excited today. These types of episodes where I get success stories from people outside of the online business, blogging, entrepreneurship, podcasting, blogging space. Did I say blogging already? I think I did. But anyway, people love these success stories from people who are winning outside of these sort of how to make money online spaces. And I can't wait to share today's success story because these are two people who are on by popular demand. These are the people behind pinchofyum.com, one of the most successful food blogs out there, a food blog with nearly 2 million views every single month, 1.5 million sessions, and they are making a lot of money too. And how do I know that? Because they actually post their income report on their food blog. So we're going to get into why they do that, what has happened as a result of that, and they're making upwards of anywhere between $15,000 to $30,000 a month from what they do, and they reveal exactly how they do that as well. So let's not wait any longer. Let's welcome Lindsay and Bjork Ostrom from pinchofyum.com. Here we go. What's up, everybody? I'm so happy today to have the founders and the bloggers and the authors of pinchofyum.com on the show with us. We have Lindsay and Bjork. Just such an incredible story, such an incredible and inspiring website. I am so hungry as well after going on their site and looking at all their amazing pictures. So before we get into the story, Lindsay and Bjork, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pat. Yeah. Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks, Pat. We're excited to be here.
Oh, this is super cool. I've actually had a lot of people in the audience ask me to interview you guys because you guys are doing some amazing things. You have a food blog at Pinch of Yum, but you have income reports, which is good. We're going to get into that. But before that, let's just start at the beginning. Lindsay, why don't you start with how you got into what you guys are up to now?
Yeah, well, I've always been, I don't know if I would say a foodie, but I've always been interested in food and cooking. And right after I graduated from college, so that was 6 years ago, I got a job as an elementary school teacher, which is what I went to school for. And Bjork and I were recently married. So I was, cooking more and kind of doing like more meals for the two of us. Mm-hmm. And I was sharing a lot on Facebook or, just with friends and stuff. And I kind of started to worry that, maybe I'm annoying all my friends because I'm, blabbing about all my food all over the place. And Bjork kind of suggested, kind of as a joke, but kind of seriously, you should start a blog. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was just completely clueless, but we kind of got started. We got started with a Tumblr blog. Mm-hmm. And so I started posting there and my posts were terrible. They were like really just so silly. The recipes were so ridiculous and I had no idea what I was doing. But over time, I continued to do it and I continued to get better. And it kind of became this thing that I didn't really know I had this passion for. I was super excited about it. And and it grew in terms of traffic and readership and got to the point where we started to earn an income from it. And then, eventually that income started to surpass what we were making with our day jobs. And so we both within the last year have both officially left our day jobs to do this full time.
That's so awesome. There's a lot in there, of course, and we'll get into that. But first of all, just congratulations on all the success. This is just so incredible. And to know that you started on Tumblr, wasn't even on your own site.
Yeah.
And then you even said it yourself that, your recipes were terrible. And like what during that process, were you ever like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. I think early on it was like, also early on, I never really had the idea that like this could be a thing. So in a sense, I had that, but I also didn't really have the self-pressure because I just felt like, I'll just do it whenever I want, like whatever, nobody's really reading it or anything like that. But then as I started to realize, my eyes were open to the world of Google Analytics and I started to understand that game a little bit more. Sure. Then I started to, like really think, okay, I need to actually game up a little bit and do better with my content. And I want to get more people in to the site. And so I feel like that kind of put a fire under me to start improving the quality and posting more often and stuff like that.
Right. And when did the first thoughts of maybe this is something I could do full time? Because I know when you're starting out, it can be tough. And I don't know how long it was until you started getting those thoughts, but how long was it till you were like, wow, this is something I actually could keep going with?
Yeah, I think in terms of like thinking about leaving my, my teaching job, which is, as a side note, that's like what I've always wanted to do. And it's just so bizarre to me that here I am, little more than 5 years after graduating with my quote unquote dream job, that I would willingly leave it for something else. So it was just totally unexpected and something I never really thought of. But I think the idea first came into my mind when, we started doing these income reports probably about 2 years after we started. And then it was maybe a year and a half after that we made more in a month, than I was making teaching. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is legit. Like, this is a real thing. And, in terms of financially, it would give me the freedom to leave. And then at that point, it was just a question of if I was willing to give up my teaching job, because I loved my teaching job regardless of the money. So
right. So about 3.5 years actually till that point, which is quite a long time. And I think a lot of people need to hear that. So thank you for being honest and sharing that. So Bjork, when you pitched this idea to Lindsay about, maybe you should do these recipes online, where did you get the inspiration? Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, I was at the time, Lindsay and I, like she mentioned, we had been married. It was within the first year or 2 years. And so we'd head over to the gym together every day, and on the way over, she'd plug in headphones and I'd plug in headphones, and we'd do our workout. And one of the books that I stumbled upon was Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk, which I know that you've referred to before too.
Yes.
And as I was listening to that, there's an example for those that haven't read that book or listened to it, where he talks about this idea of somebody who's really passionate about worms. And he says, if you are super passionate about worms, you can take that and you can start a blog, and eventually you're going to grow that to the point where you're going to be like the worm authority. And there's going to be people that manufacture fake worms, and they're going to want to advertise on your site. And to me, that was this idea of like, you know what? That makes a ton of sense. And I had never thought about it in that context before or that way. And then I also had read a few of these posts before where some people had said, if you're going to do anything around food online, you can basically assume that it's going to be a hobby, because it's impossible to create income from that. And so I had these two kind of conflicting ideas when we were getting into it. And I said, Lindsay, I think you can take this blog thing, and I think, you can really make something of it. And for Lindsay, I think her starting out was like, hey, I'm passionate about this. I want to do this. I have this genuine need and want to share this. And I was always kind of interested in the business aspect of it, and not even just the business aspect, but also like, hey, if you're going to set it up on Tumblr, I would love to jump on there and see what that's like to get that set up. So right from the start, it was a really good tag team, and it was a really good way for us to work together. So it's kind of from those early influencers that idea came about, and this idea of like a blog. And at the time, it's like, what is a blog? Mm-hmm. I always understood it as, sharing updates and stuff with your family, never really in the context of something that could be really specific and eventually potentially be a business.
Right. That's really cool. Now, food blogs are competitive. You guys weren't the first food blog to come out there. I mean, how did you know that this was going to work? Or did you?
I don't think I had any idea, really. I don't even think I had an idea of how competitive it was. And I feel like it's gotten more competitive even within the last maybe even 2 years.
Right.
Because when I started, we were just talking about this the other day. I mean, I feel like it was a little bit different. Like, I feel like the things that you needed to get some attention amongst food blog people, it was different, or I don't know. It just seems like it's changed quite a bit. So I think in terms of like Pinch of Yum and how that's continued to kind of grow over the long term, I feel like it's not necessarily something specific other than, it's like I just share sometimes stuff about our life. And I think I've become more comfortable with that. And I think the people who want to be there for that then are inclined to come back for more of that, because that's unique to Pinch of Yum. But I think the unique thing is actually not that unique, which is just long long-term hard work, just continuing to show up day after day and continuing to get a little bit better with my posts. And I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
it's not super clear, but
No, it does. And now I'm curious because this blog has grown so much over the last number of years, and I'm curious, when it first started, where was this traffic coming from? And actually, even before we get to that, can we maybe specify each of your roles in Pinch of Yum? So Lindsay, like, what is it that you do specifically for Pinch of Yum? And then Bjork, what is it that you do?
Yeah. So at this point where we're at, my role is primarily content creation.
Okay.
So, that includes the recipe posts that come out. We do 3 a week, and then occasionally like a lifestyle or kind of life-y type post. But I'll do all of that. So I do all the content, and obviously community management for Pinch of Yum. And then content creation also crosses over a little bit into products. So so it's basically new content is kind of my role.
Okay. How about you, Bjork?
Yeah, so my role's kind of switched over the years. So when we first got started, I was kind of the behind the scenes guy. So I would do all things tech just because that's what I was really interested in. And then some of the like ad management and things like that. My role has really shifted quite a bit really over the last 2 years, where I would say realistically in terms of time, I spend about 10% of my time on Pinch of Yum helping out with stuff like maybe server maintenance or ad networks or things like that. But I've really shifted pretty heavily into kind of a sister site that we have called Food Blogger Pro. And Food Blogger Pro is actually a membership site for food bloggers. So we started that almost exactly 2 years ago. So 90% of my time is spent with that community, with those people, creating content for that. And then also we have a forum. So it's engaging on the forum and just kind of keeping an eye on that. So that's kind of what our roles look like today.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, we'll get into Food Blogger Pro in a second. But going back to the traffic, kind of how long till you started seeing some traffic, significant traffic coming in? And then where was that traffic coming from? Was it just coming naturally from Google, or were you doing anything to market and promote the site?
Yeah, I think probably, well, this is at least what I remember, is that within the first, I would say 2 years, food sharing websites were a really big deal. So that would be a site like Food Gawker or Taste Spotting would be another example of these sites that would like curate all different recipes. And so you would submit your photo to them and along with a link back to your post, and then they would kind of curate, pages of these recipes, and foodies would go to the sites, and it's like all the curated best stuff of the food blogs kind of a thing. And so for me, that was a really big deal in the beginning. When I found those sites and started submitting, and then, started getting like little old nobody me started getting my photos and my recipes featured on those sites, or lots of people would favorite them. And I feel like that kind of started a snowball of building traffic. And I think it also started a personal motivation, kind of what I was talking about before, where then I would go into Google Analytics and see, wow, from Food Gawker, we got like 100 visitors, today just from Food Gawker. And it was like, wow, that's a big deal, or was a big deal to us at the time. And so then that would kind of motivate me to keep on going. And in terms of like Google and I don't know, Pinterest has always been a big traffic source for us, but I've not been super active on Pinterest personally, or like with a Pinch of Yum account. So a lot of that just comes from creating content that resonates with people that they're excited to share. And so, just within the last year, we've been on Pinterest, but up until that time, it was always a leading traffic source, even without Pinch of Yum necessarily having a presence there with our own account. So.
That's really cool. And then what are the numbers looking like now in terms of traffic? Like, where are they coming from, and how many people are coming each month?
Yeah, so right now, actually last month was the first month where Google surpassed Pinterest in terms of traffic to Pinch of Yum, which is exciting for us because Pinterest can be kind of up and down. Like there's a little bit more of the virality that goes into Pinterest. So 1 month you could have something that's really popular and you have a bunch of traffic. And then the next month, maybe that dies off a little bit, as opposed to Google, which is in general, unless you're hit with some kind of weird algorithm change, it's generally an upward trend. And so for the first time last month, the majority of traffic to Pinch of Yum came from Google. In terms of traffic numbers, over the past few months, roughly speaking, I don't know the exact numbers. It'd be like 2 million page views per month, and then probably in the 1 to 1.5 in terms of visits.
That's crazy.
And that's pretty, yeah, it's crazy. And a lot of that has to do with like, so many people are searching out food. It's a lot. Some people might hear that are listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get to that number because it's just such a big number, but so much of it is niche specific where there's so many searches for recipes every single day, where food blogs have a little bit of an advantage in that they're going to have really high traffic. You might lose a little bit on that because engagement might not be as high because once people get there, they get the recipe and that might be all that they're looking for. So they come, they leave. So traditionally, a food blog will also have a really high bounce rate. But the advantage is you can really drive a lot of traffic. The hard part is getting those people to engage and to stick around.
Right. And I'm really curious now because, people search for these recipes and you got a lot of people coming to the site searching for recipes. They get that recipe and it looks awesome. You got these amazing pictures. And I will say, you got to visit Pinch of Yum. I mean, there was one for drunken chicken marsala I just saw. And my mouth was like starting to water. And I think I might try and cook that tonight, actually.
All right.
So we'll see what happens. But anyway, so people are coming to these recipes. It's like, okay, they come and then they get it. And then they, I would imagine that they leave. How are you staying connected with them? And also, how are you monetizing this kind of site? That's what I think would be the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I think the connecting piece, I think Lindsay does a really good job of this. And I think it's being a little bit vulnerable. And I think you're great at doing that, Pat. It's opening yourself up a little bit and letting yourself know that you're human. So Lindsay is pretty intentional about sharing stories, and maybe she can talk about that a little bit later, but like just doing her best to be authentic and genuine and to talk about food. But it's also, if people are going to stay, it's because of you, because we all know that there are sites out there where you can really easily get good recipes and you can search through it and find what you want really quickly. So if people are going to stay, it's because of who you are and your connection with them, and because of how you communicate on the blog, and maybe you share a story about something you struggled with, or something you're exciting about, or a personal story. People connect with that. So I think that's a really important piece, Pat. I think you're great at that. And I think that other people that really strive to be as human as possible, as scary as that is, they'll really win long-term because it helps people stick around. In terms of the monetization, it's really an interesting scenario with food blogs, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier. Because you can have such a huge amount of traffic, ad networks are something that traditionally work pretty well with a food blog. Whereas I know with a lot of other blogs, because they would maybe be lower traffic, higher niche, an ad network might not be the best way to go. But with a food blog, a lot of food blogs will monetize strictly through ad networks. But as ad networks continue to be kind of a pain in the neck for us, we're continuing to think about what are ways that we can move away from just using ad networks. So for us right now, that looks like ad networks. It's affiliate marketing. We have our own products that we sell. And then Lindsay also does sponsored content, where maybe a brand comes and they say, hey, we would love for you to write a recipe and to do a post, and then to talk about our food product and how you use that. So those are really the main ways that we're monetizing right now. Ad networks is probably number one, but I think especially in 2015, we're going to start moving away from those, which is a little bit scary because we'll kind of be giving ourselves a pay decrease. But I think long run, it'll be more beneficial for us.
Right. And what kinds of products, Lindsay, are you selling on the site? Are these just recipe books, or are there other kinds of things?
Yeah. So right now I have 3 ebooks on the site that are products for sale. And so the first one that I wrote, that was probably 2012 that I wrote. It was a book about food photography. And it was really kind of random at the time. But it's been really amazing in how much it's sold. I mean, totally unexpected to me. I wrote it thinking like maybe a few people will buy this.
That's interesting. That's like that's the first product that you created, even though that's not really like, because your audience on the site are people looking for recipes to cook with. And what made you decide to do a food photography product?
Well, it's funny because now, like, sometimes we'll go to conferences and we'll talk about ebooks, and I always advise people, like, always do something that you can teach or solve a problem for your readers, and be really intentional about choosing that. And I feel like I did that, but it was kind of just by chance that I did that. Like, I was not being intentional about that at all. I think I was just, what happened was I went to a class, a food photography class. And I came home from the class and I was like, gosh, I knew all that already. And I didn't know that was the stuff that people needed to know. And I felt like with my teaching background, I felt excited to try to kind of take this creative process and break it down into, step-by-step, easy to understand, skill-based kind of stuff. And so that was kind of what spurred that on. And I also just personally like photography and like learning about it. So it makes it an easy thing to write about. And it just ended up being a great match for, I think, for our audience, but also I think the reason that far outsells the e-cookbooks that I've published on the site and that I have for sale, which is so interesting because most of the audience is probably not, is not a food blogger. They're not looking for help with their food photography. But with that food photography ebook, we have a really strong affiliate program. And so when people finish reading the book, it says, hey, if you're interested in sharing this with someone, if you found it helpful, share about it on your blog, and then you'll get a portion of the sale. And that's just been huge for us. So yeah, so those are the three main products that we have on Pinch of Yum would be the food photography book and then the two e-cookbooks. But important to note that the food photography book, I feel like pretty much single-handedly takes the income in that department.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Can you give us some insight on like potentially how much you've made on that book?
Yeah, for sure. So the ebook makes consistently probably $3,000 to $4,000 a month. It hasn't always been that much, but the growth has been up generally with it. And I think it's because of awareness of it grows and through the affiliate program as well. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty consistent, would be probably in the $3,000 to $4,000 range a month.
And I see that it's on sale for $19.
Yep, it's $19. And we've thought about different steps that we're going to take in this next year to kind of build that out and kind of make it more of a resource. So that might change in the future, but at the time of this recording, that's $19. Yeah.
So you guys are selling a good number of these every single month.
Yeah. Yep. It's a good handful. I think we've overall sold maybe like 5,500 or something like somewhere around there, between 5,000 and 6,000.
That's so cool. And is this on Amazon or is this sold strictly through your site?
Yeah, it's just strictly through Pinch of Yum. One of the things that was a hard decision to make was where we're going to distribute it. And the hardest thing with the ebook is there's so many photos with it. And so to think about somebody reading that on a Kindle was a little bit sad because so much of the emphasis is on small changes that you can make with, Lindsay will show, like if you do an aperture at this versus an aperture at this. So that's a photography term, aperture. So if you change your aperture, this is what it will look like. And if it was on a Kindle, like just a traditional Kindle reader, you might not even be able to tell. So
that's true.
We're just doing it strictly PDF, and we're doing that through the site.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. I mean, when you think about it, Kindle's good for reading words, maybe not so much for looking at stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And plus, I know that if you're going to be, you can publish images on Kindle, and there are, those Kindle readers that do show photos in color, but you do have to pay depending on the size of those as well, I believe.
Right. Yeah. So if you have a bunch of photos, which we do in this book, like, I'm sure your profit margin would shrink pretty quickly because you're paying for the bandwidth of the download. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Cool. Now, you also mentioned sponsored posts. I know that this is a good opportunity for a lot of the readers out there who don't necessarily have products or affiliate products to sell. Sponsored posts, if you have a good amount of traffic, can be a great monetization source. Can you talk more about how, the sort of process for that and how that works?
So at this point, we're represented by an agency that kind of acts as like the third party negotiators between us as Pinch of Yum and a brand. So, but I know that a lot of food bloggers, are working directly with brand representatives. For us, we just felt like in the intake of the leads and the processing through all that stuff just got to be too much. So we now have that like managed. But I basically send all my leads to them, and, they'll work out contracts. And if it's something that I like, then I'll say yes. And yeah, with food, we're lucky with food because there are just a lot of brands that want to get in front of people who love food. And if it's a good match, it's the same kind of content that I would otherwise be creating. It's a new recipe usually, but it just features a new ingredient. So I feel like with the future of Pinch of Yum, the next few years, I feel like with moving away from banner ads, I am open and excited about doing that more. And I think it's a great opportunity for bloggers, not only to say to their readers, hey, because it is valuable to your readers when you say, this is a good product and I like it, and here's why I like it, and here's what you can do with it. I mean, it's equally promotion for the brand and income for you as the blogger, and also value for your reader. So to me, it's a win-win, and am totally fine doing them. And I really like featuring brands that we like. So
That's cool. But you have to be honest with your audience about the fact that, you are getting compensation for that. Is that right?
yeah, absolutely. So all my posts have to have that are sponsored have to have, multiple disclaimers in multiple places. And yeah, so there are rules about that for sure.
Got it. And then in terms of the deals that you make with these companies or the third-party company that you have, are you paid per post? Are you paid per number of views on those posts within a certain period of time? Like, how does the monetization work in terms of sponsored posts?
Yeah, so a lot of it depends on. Okay, I'll say this: it's just usually a flat fee.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, we know you have this kind of reach, and we know you have built this kind of trust with your audience, and so we will pay you X amount of dollars. And usually, it's like in the $2,000 to $3,000 range per post. So we'll pay you, this much amount of money to go in front of your readers and have you kind of be affiliated with us and promote us. But I've never done a sponsored post. I don't know, maybe it's a thing, but I don't know of any sponsored posts that I've done where they're paid based on clicks or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just, because that's how kind of podcast sponsorships work. It sort of sounds similar, but I think a flat fee, that totally makes sense. And it's probably just easier across the board. Have you ever been approached by a company that wanted to sponsor one of your posts and it didn't really align with what you were doing and you said no?
Yeah, and I think in the particular instance I'm thinking of, it was both the product and frankly the budget. And I think to me, if it's like, if there's any question, regardless of if it's within budget or not, or what I feel like is fair, we're fortunate that I feel like at this point we're not, we have the ability to say no to things, which is a really good place to be in. But I think it's really important, and I think a lot of people. It's really cool to see within the blogging community, because I think people do hold pretty tightly to what they feel and won't just let any old brand or any old product sponsor a recipe. But it's hard because it's sometimes they're paid well and it would be easy to say yes, but you really have to think about what is my blog, what is my brand, what's valuable to my readers, and keeping that at the forefront.
Amen. For sure. There's a lot of things that you guys have done over the years. A lot of things I'm sure that maybe didn't go quite as well. Are there some things that you wish you could sort of do over, or maybe you can give some lessons to everybody out there who's listening who can learn from those experiences that, maybe something you wish you had done sooner even, or better, or maybe not at all?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The one thing that you've talked about before, Pat, that I think is really true is just figuring out email. And we're still trying to do that. We're trying to figure out the best way to approach the audience on Pinch of Yum, at least in terms of email. Right now, what we do is we do like an RSS to email. So when a new post goes out, those people will automatically be notified.
Sure.
So we're trying to figure out, what does that look like to really do email well with Pinch of Yum? So I'd be speaking to myself presently and saying it'd be good to figure that out. I think another thing that would be important, and I've talked about this before, is like to not get too deep into it, and this is a little bit more like abstract. It's not super concrete or actionable, but I think it might be important for some people to hear. I think it would be to not be too hard on yourself and to allow yourself to enjoy the process. And I think what can happen sometimes is we can get so deep into this. You can listen to Smart Passive Income, and you can listen to business podcasts, and you have all these actionable things, and pretty soon you can get so far deep in that you can start to get hard on yourself, and it doesn't become enjoyable anymore. And so if I were to do it again, and I were to go back, let's say 3 or 4 years when we were first getting started with this, I would say, Bjork, figure out ways to enjoy the process, to allow the process to make you a better person, as opposed to getting so far into it that you kind of put up those like blinders that horses wear, which I think can be good sometimes. But I think for the most part, it's good to be aware of all the other things happening in life and not to get too focused into stuff. So I think I would just have a little bit more grace with myself as we were getting started, and to not be like too concerned with the small details along the way.
So it sounds like when you were getting started, you were like concerned about a lot of those things that maybe looking back were a little bit trivial.
Yeah. And, the example that I'm thinking of specifically is Lindsay and I spent a year abroad, and we were working at an orphanage in Cebu City, Philippines. And that was actually the same time where we were working on this side project I mentioned earlier called Food Blogger Pro. And we were really committed to it. And I had some time during the day because Lindsay was teaching at the school, and I was helping The orphanage was kind of some multimedia stuff, so my schedule was pretty flexible. But as I look back on it, that experience was like a really rich and valuable life experience. And I think that if I were to do it again, I would have built more margins into my life and into my time in order to enjoy that experience a little bit more, as opposed to being so focused on getting this business launched. So, which is hard because, the business stuff is super tangible, like it's numbers and it's analytics and we can see it grow. And the life stuff is a little bit more abstract, and it's harder to see the value in that, but there's definitely value in that. And I think that I've tried to teach myself to be aware of that and to not get too focused on the business stuff.
That's cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Income reports. You're a food blog, but you have income reports. Where did this idea come from? Why are they there? And how's it been working out for you guys?
Yeah. So I was trying to think back to when we first started those. And that was kind of around the time when, the story that I referenced earlier, where we kind of had these two people sitting on our shoulders, one saying, hey, you can't create an income from a food blog. And then this other shoulder where it's like, hey, yeah, you can. And so I think that it might have been around the time that you were doing the niche site duel. Do you remember when you first started doing that, Pat?
August of 2010.
Okay, so that was after that.
Okay, well, that's when it started, but really it started to get into motion maybe 3-4 months after that.
Sure. So I was aware of that, and I was aware of those, and I don't remember if it was those specifically, and it wasn't really like a niche site that we had started, but I was reading through some of those reports and some of those other people that were doing income reports. And I thought, hey, this makes sense. And we're kind of starting at ground zero here. The first one we did was like $28 or something like that. And I asked Lindsay, I think, that I asked permission if I could jump on and start to do these monthly reports, just to kind of keep track of, like, number one, is this something that's possible? But also, it was really good accountability for us in order to continually figure out ways to improve and to do things differently and to implement new things. So for us, we really started it out as like accountability, but then also this experiment. We called it the Food Blog Money-Making Experiment, which is one of the least creative names of all time. But that's what it was, right? It was a food blog money-making experiment.
But why? I mean, if you're talking about keeping track and holding yourself accountable and, goal setting and that sort of stuff, that's stuff you could do in private. And it's funny because I'm asking you these questions and I'm the one who's like doing these income reports myself. But I'm curious, like, why publish that on a site where those readers aren't maybe going to be necessarily, looking for an income report? Like I would imagine,
Right.
I go to find a recipe and I see income. Part of me is like, whoa, this is super cool, just because this is who I am and I like business and I like to see those things. But, I could see another part of me being like, okay, this person is just trying to make money off me.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's a tension that I think we've felt and we continue to feel, because like with Smart Passive Income, you publish an income report and it's like, well, it's Smart Passive Income. Like that's totally aligned with what you're doing.
Right.
And for us, it's like Pinch of Yum and income reports, which isn't aligned at all with what the other content is. To be honest, I don't know. When we think back on it, do you have something that you'd want to share? Yeah.
Well, I just think and this is maybe a little vague because we're both kind of like, why was it? But I think we both had the idea that like the value wasn't going to be right then and there, but like that we were just starting something and that the value would be, 1 year in, 2 years in, when we would really start using that information to then kind of create the teaching side of Pinch of Yum. I don't know. Do you think that's true?
Yeah. And I think the other piece too is like, it was a way for us to like sync up two very different things in one place for us as a couple. Like it was Lindsay, Pinch of Yum, food, and like I'm a terrible, terrible chef. Like I can't cook. I tried to make an omelet for lunch today, and it was like and this is no overstatement, I think I ruined the pan. Like Lindsay's like, I think we're gonna have to throw this away.
Oh man.
And so I'm a terrible chef, but I'm really interested in this world of like online business and technology surrounding websites and all of that stuff. So part of it too was a way to like for us to coexist in one place, even though we have these vastly different interests. They're starting to come together a little bit. Like I think Lindsay's maybe starting to get a little bit more interested in this stuff, and I'm attempting food stuff. I'm still not there yet. But part of it too was, I think, for us to be able to work on one project together, despite our varied interests,
Yeah, I see that. I mean, I'm on the site now and I can see both of your personalities here. It's all in one spot. Like you said, I think you've made it your own. It's a reflection of who you guys are.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, like you said, something that you wouldn't necessarily expect when you come to a site. But I think that's maybe why it's a little bit intriguing too, is because it's this site that's not around online business, and yet we're talking around online business. Kind of like if that worm farmer that Gary Vaynerchuk talked about eventually started doing little business reports. Suddenly, for other worm farmers, it'd be really intriguing because they're like, "Oh, this is how this worm farmer is creating an income." And I think that's what those have done for Pinch of Yum.
Right. And for me personally, I know that now that I've shared my income for over 6 years now, people look at that every month and they want me to get to that next level. They are supporting me. And whenever they purchase something, either through an affiliate link or something that I'm offering, it's like they know that they're a part of that and that we're all in it together. And I feel like it's the same thing with you, because when people were like, you got to interview the guys from Pinch of Yum, they do an income report. It's awesome. It's obvious that they notice it and that they think it's cool and they think it helps you stand out from everybody else. Not just for that reason. That's not the only reason to do it, but that's sort of a byproduct of doing that.
Yeah, for sure. It's fascinating and it's intriguing, and I think it's really helpful too. Like I would say for us, looking back, so Gary Vaynerchuk obviously in that book had a really big impact, but then to see from you when you'd publish these reports, for us, we look at it and we're like, hey, this is something that's possible. And we've also had stories where people have come to us and they said, hey, we looked at one of those and we're like, hey, it's possible. It's kind of like the 4-minute mile. Is it 4 minutes?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like once somebody broke that record, then people are like, oh, I guess you can run a 4-minute mile.
Right.
And then everybody started running, but a lot of people started running 4-minute miles, whereas before it was people never did it. And it's almost like just for people to know that it's possible allows them then to be able to jump in and do it on their own.
Yeah, that's really cool. It even reminds me of Dan Norris, who was on the show recently from WP Curve. He has a service helping people with WordPress customer service type stuff, and he publishes an income report as well. And that's not necessarily related, but people love him for that. They love his company and back it totally and are completely in line with what he has to share and his values. And that helps spread word of the company.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I think in the back of your mind, people are always wondering like, hey, how does this site make money? And I think people are at ease a little bit when they know or can clearly see how it is, because they know like they're not being tricked along the way, or somebody's not trying to like pull something over on them. I think the transparency really helps people to feel at ease, where it's like somebody's coming to me and they're saying, this is how we create income from the site. And if you are looking at our chicken marsala recipe, like here's how we're creating an income from it. And I think that helps people relax a little bit maybe when dealing with anything business related online.
That's true. Now, I know there are some people out there listening right now that are shaking their heads. They're like, no, I would never. No, I can't even imagine. I would never do that. And I don't think it's for everybody. So you kind of have to see what it might be like. And, this isn't an answer for everybody. And some people don't even share their income, but they share something that they are continually reaching toward. I remember Chris Ducker when he had his virtual business lifestyle website, and he was talking about how he was going to convert from this sort of full-time CEO in his business to a virtual CEO and spend less hours with the office every week and more time with his family. And he was documenting that over time, how many hours he was in the office and how many hours he was at home. And people were loving that process. So I think just the idea of being able to come back and see something and see progression and see that there's care there, it's almost like opening up those factory doors. And this is sort of your way of doing it, which is similar to the way I do it. But there's all different kinds of way to sort of open the kimono a little bit and show people what and how things work, and to get people more in tune with what you have to offer and show how the insides of the factory work, to get people to understand that you actually care about what you do.
Right. Yeah. And another huge piece of it too is just like, it's insanely helpful. And I think that there are other ways that you can, show how the factory works with maybe not like letting people all the way in. But you can reveal things that will be helpful for people. And I think at the core, really what it is it's helpful. And if people can see really concretely, like, hey, you're not just kind of saying like, I'm creating an income from this. You're saying, here's how much I am creating from my site. And then you're also saying, here's how I do it, which is even above and beyond helpful. So I think kind of at its core, it's figuring out what are the things that we can share that are even more helpful than, the traditional recipe or things like that. And I think that translates into other niches as well.
Yeah, totally. Now let's finish up by talking about Food Blogger Pro. Where did the idea for this come from?
Food Blogger Pro is really kind of an ear to the ground business where we've always tried to keep our ear to the ground and say, what is it that people are talking about and what are the needs that people have? And one that we just consistently heard people ask and request is everything around like the technical side of blogging and photography. And, that would be like SEO, that would be like monetization, that would be like, how do you take a food photo or edit it in Photoshop? So we really consistently get questions like that. So, there's a lot of different ways that you can go in and create information products around those. And we decided to try a membership site. And so we launched Food Blogger Pro. It was 2 years ago. And there's really 3 components to it. So there's the videos. We have 300 videos all around those things I mentioned before, kind of 3 to 5 minute videos, 3 to 10 minute videos.
300 videos?
Yeah. So it's like screencasts. It's like live photography shoots. It's things like that.
Did it start with 300 or have you kind of added it more over time?
It was maybe like 2 to 250 that we started with. So it was like super hustle. And we did that in 3 months. So
jeez.
Yeah. So it was kind of a crazy 3 months. So there's videos, there's a community forum. So people can go and they can post questions and interact on the community forum. That's one thing that we've found has been really beneficial just because, as you know, like the idea of starting a blog or starting a website can be a really lonely thing, especially if you have people in your life that are supportive, but maybe don't necessarily get it. And there's really detailed things that some people will get and other people won't. And to have that community element has been a really beneficial thing, and to meet those people in person, and that's just been a really cool thing. So there's a community forum, and then lastly, we're very slowly starting to add in like actual software tools. So the example of the one that we have right now is a nutrition label generator. So if you paste in ingredients and then press analyze, it'll spit out a nutrition label that you can then download and upload to your blog to go along with the recipe.
That's super cool.
So it's a really simple way for people to get a nutrition label onto their site.
How did you guys start that process? You guys aren't developers yourself, right?
No, that was one of those things where if you were to said 3 years ago that I would have had any involvement with like developing some type of software solution, I would have been like, what? But I think that really what it comes down to is finding capable people and then communicating your vision. So I'm not a developer by any means, but the process for that was reaching out to a couple of friends who recommended a developer. And then I mocked up a couple things in Photoshop. The hardest part was figuring out, so this is getting into a little bit of the detail stuff, but an API. So essentially a database that we could partner with that would pull that information. So once we found that, essentially I found a developer and said, Photoshop files, here they are. This is kind of what we're looking for. And then they mocked it up and we did a couple revisions and then we pushed it live.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So Lindsay, what's kind of on the docket next? What's up next for Pinch of Yum?
Well, we're really excited about reducing ads in 2015. And I don't even know if reducing ads is the right word, but maybe replacing banner ads with advertisements directing people to our own products. So kind of building out that library of products. And I think a lot of that will be teaching focus, as we've realized from the case study of the photography book versus the 2 cookbooks, that, something that teaches or solves a problem for people, that's really compelling and really helpful. And that's going to be the ticket for us. So I'm super excited just to change a little bit of the feel of the site and hopefully make it feel, how it is having a blog, and try to get it to look a certain way, and then you have to plunk ads on there and you don't know what's going to show necessarily. So being able to make the whole experience more cohesive by building out that product library, and then replacing banner ads eventually with ads for our own products, I guess, in-house ads.
I love that. I look forward to that. And Bjork, to finish off with you, what are some things that right now in your business are truly working? What's working really well for you right now?
I think the one thing that we've really found that has been effective is like intentionally treating people like people. So we do a lot of email and interaction individually with people, and also on the forums, responding to comments, things like that. It's a lot of work to do that, and it's not very scalable. But we found that it's been one thing that's been really, really beneficial to us, because we're able to establish those connections with people, which goes a really, really long way. The other thing that I would say would be important is to to get people in your life that get it. And for us, for both Lindsay and I, we have mastermind groups that we meet with, on a weekly or almost weekly basis. And I think those people being able to speak into your life and say, hey, you should do this a little bit differently, or this might be a way that you guys could improve is really, really beneficial. So I don't think that necessarily has to be people that are doing online business. I think it's great if it can be, but just to have people that kind of understand a little bit what you're doing has been really beneficial for us.
That's super cool. And correct me if I'm wrong, to get more information from you guys, head on over to Pinch of Yum, right?
That'd be it.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So everybody out there, go ahead and visit Pinch of Yum. They also have the nice navigation area at the top. You can see how everything's going over there. The income reports are super incredibly helpful. And last month, November of 2014, I see $20,751.47. Congratulations, guys. Just amazing.
Oh,
Thanks, Pat. Really appreciate it. And one thing before we wrap up, I just really wanted to say thank you for what you've done. You've had a huge impact on us. And it's like life stuff, like we're doing different stuff today than we would be if we hadn't figured out this smart passive income stuff.
Crazy,
so we
right?
really appreciate you and what you've done for people, and it's life-changing stuff, and it means a lot. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that, guys. You can thank my employer for letting me go back in 2008.
Yeah, I'll put a call in. I'm sure they'd appreciate that.
No, love you guys. Thank you so much. Best of luck to you, and we'll have to catch up again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks,
Bye.
Pat.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Lindsay and Bjork from pinchofyum.com. If you'd like to get the show notes for this episode, you can go to smartpassiveincome.com/session148, and you can get all that information right there, all the links that were mentioned on the show. And I highly recommend you check out Pinch of Yum, not just because of their drunken chicken marsala and other recipes, of course, but because of their income reports, which are super inspiring. And there's also traffic reports on those sites as well. With a lot of insights, actually. I was just looking at the recent one, and I think they have like 65% of their viewers are actually coming from mobile. So I didn't check yet, but I hope their site's mobile responsive, and I hope yours is too. Sort of side note there. But secondly, also check out Food Blogger Pro, the homepage to that, which promotes their sort of course for how to create a food blog specifically, is super cool. They have a really cool opt-in area or a promotional area with video behind it as well. So you could see Bjork and Lindsay there. She's like standing on a chair taking a picture of food on the table, which is super cool. So check that out. Again, show notes are available at smartpassiveincome.com/session148.
Hey, and really quick, I want to let you know about a page on the website that might be really helpful for you. A lot of you are already taking action on what you've heard on the podcast, which is fantastic. But a lot of you have also messaged me asking for more, deeper information, more fine-tuned and highly targeted information for specific problems and pains that you might be having. So what I did was I actually put together a few courses. There's more courses actually coming down the road, but you could check out all the courses and things that are available to you there at smartpassiveincome.com/courses. My team and I have worked really hard to put together the best information that'll help you solve specific problems that you might be having in your business. So if you're just starting out and you need help and you need accountability, handholding, you want a community behind this as well, check it out, smartpassiveincome.com/courses. You can see what's available there. All different kinds of courses to help you through a number of different things you might be working on. And like I said, there are more courses coming down the road too. So one more time, smartpassiveincome.com/courses.
And again, thank you to Lindsay and Bjork for coming on the show today and sharing everything with us. They're super cool, and you are super cool for staying on and listening to the episode. I appreciate you so much. I mean, this is why I do what I do, to have you listen and get value and hopefully take action from what you hear on the show. Until next week, just keep crushing it. Love you guys. If you had a sec, go ahead and go to iTunes, leave a review for the show if you haven't already. I appreciate it so much. I'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast at www.smartpassiveincome.com.
More people dream about building their own business and being their own boss rather than retiring early. But a majority of them never even take the first steps to register the business. Why? Because starting a business can feel overwhelming. With legal forms, paperwork, finances, it's a lot. And that's where Taylor Brands comes in. Taylor is a complete business builder designed to make launching your business simple and stress-free. You can register your LLC in just minutes, keeping your personal and business assets separate from day one. And from there, you can get access to everything you need to get off the ground, from legal documents, licenses and permits, invoicing and bookkeeping tools, and even a 100-day business coaching program to help you hit the ground running. You'll also get a free personalized business plan, branding tools, and so much more. And of course, our listeners get an exclusive 35% discount to get started. Just head to tailorbrands.com/SPI. That's TAILORBRANDS.com/SPI. Stop dreaming, start building with Tailor Brands. Hey there, quick pause here because I have to tell you about a tool that completely transforms the podcasting workflow, Riverside. I get it. I used to juggle multiple platforms just to record one podcast episode. It was exhausting. Zoom for recording, Audacity for editing, and then a bunch of different apps just to create clips and social posts. I've tried other ones as well. They were okay, but they were clunky and super time-consuming. That's where Riverside has massively helped. I can do it all in one place, recording, editing, repurposing, one platform, one streamlined flow. I just log in, record with my guests no matter where they are in the world, and just like that, studio-quality audio and high-resolution video all in one. And get this, even if your Wi-Fi glitches, Riverside records locally on your device so everything sounds and looks crystal clear. But here's my favorite feature, Riverside's AI editing tool. You can remove silences and filler words with just one click, hours saved. With Magic Clips, Riverside also automatically finds the best moments and turns them into ready-to-post videos for YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, all without the extra editing. So if you're looking to level up your production quality and simplify your workflow, go to smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside and use code SMART to get 1 month free on the Pro plan. That's smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside, promo code SMART. It's built by creators for creators, and I think you're going to love it.